Welcome to the Marquis Masters podcast. I'm Beth Mund, and today our special guest is Dr. Stephen Barker. He is the Professor Emeritus of Anesthesiology and Aerospace Engineering at the University of Arizona College of Medicine. Dr. Barker walked away from a tenured engineering position at UCLA to start over as a medical student. Might be crazy or genius. With over 150 published papers spanning 2 disciplines, a top-secret Navy clearance, and nearly 3,000 hours of flight time, Dr. Barker has built one of the most extraordinary careers you may have never heard about. Today, you'll learn about the principles in physics and engineering and how they're quietly revolutionizing safety in the operating room, and why keeping your eyes open might be the best career advice that you'll ever receive. This is for curious minds and the career changers, really for anyone who's ever wondered if it's too late to follow the thing that's been in the back of their head. Discover more brilliant minds like Dr. Barker at marquiswhoswho.com. It's the who's who of people who actually did the extraordinary things that most of us only dream about. Think of it as your backstage pass to the world's most accomplished humans. And if this episode lit a spark in you, leave us a review. It's the torpedo you can fire our way. Hello, and welcome to the Marquis Masters podcast. I'm your host, Beth Mund, and today our very special guest is Dr. Stephen Barker, a rare mind who have left a tenured career in aerospace engineering to help redefine modern anesthesiology and patient safety. From DARPA to Caltech to the operating room and medical technology innovation, his story is a masterclass in curiosity, courage, and the power of crossing disciplines. Hello, Dr. Barker, and welcome to the Marquis Masters podcast.
Thank you very much, and it's nice to meet you and to be here.
It is so good to see you. You have had such an interesting career. You've branched both into medicine and aerospace engineering. How did you bridge the gap between those 2 disciplines?
Well, that's a good question, and it's a complicated answer. When I was an undergraduate in physics, actually, at Harvey Mudd College, a very techy school, great school. I got to know some people who were in medicine down at Pomona, and it always stimulated my curiosity about medicine, and it was always there in the back of my mind. But I never thought seriously about going into it. I went ahead from my bachelor's degree at Mudd to Caltech, a very good engineering and science school. I majored in aerospace at Caltech, got my PhD there. Started teaching. I loved teaching from the very beginning. After a couple more years, I went to UCLA in aerospace and took a tenure track faculty job. And at UCLA, it so happened that the engineering building in my group was right literally next door to the medical school and the hospital. So I got some exposure there and did some research that was kind of medical engineering, and that's kind of what really got me stimulated. I stayed there long enough that I actually got to a tenured position at UCLA. And, in my mind, I was thinking, well, this is great. What's next? And I guess I loved engineering. I wasn't like hating it, but the medicine thing was always in the back of my mind, way back from even undergraduate. I remember taking a psych exam as an undergraduate, and one of those career fitness things in the examiner told me, wow, you're really a better fit for medicine than you are for engineering. I just kind of put that in the back of my head. But anyway, after I was at UCLA and achieved tenure, I've been there for 5 years. this opportunity came along for a new medical school program at University of Miami. They recruited students who were already accomplished PhDs, who already were doing research in their PhD field, and they called it the PhD to MD program. And, they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. I was kind of maybe a little bit bored with my status quo. And like I said, this medicine dream was always in the back of my head. So I thought, well, why not? Let's give it a try. I amazed everybody at UCLA, but I think secretly they kind of admired me for having the guts to give up that tenure position and go start over as a medical student. But that's how it started.
Wonderful.
And, I have never really regretted that decision. It's been an interesting combined career. And the two careers are both helpful to one another. And that's what I tried to make, the main point of my second career was, how can we use principles of physics and engineering to improve medical care? And there's lots of answers to that. So that's how it happened.
Wonderful. When you started your medical career and your studies, what drew you to anesthesiology?
Another very good question. As a, experimentalist in the engineering lab, and what I did was technically called fluid mechanics, I was used to working with my hands in the laboratory is what I did, and I think I was pretty good at it. So as I went into medicine, I thought, well, I work with my hands, I'm obviously going to be a surgeon. And I started out in surgery all the way into my internship, which was back at UC San Diego, and that, by the way, is the place I was born, and the hospital where I did my residency was literally 50 yards from the hospital I was born in. As I started my internship in surgery, I learned within a few months that the guys on what we call the other side of the blood-brain barrier, which is the surgical drapes, the guys on the other side of the drapes were mainly the anesthesiologists, were doing the stuff that really fascinated me, which was medical physiology, pharmacology, how drugs interact on a real-time basis, and technology. And I was especially interested in the technology side because it's kind of what I did as an engineer. And medical technology was kind of in its early stages of development when I did my residency in the early 70s. So that's how it happened. I went from engineering to medicine to surgery to anesthesia. Once I made the switch to anesthesia, I realized, I have found my home. This is it. These people are doing what fascinates me in medicine. Like I said, a blend of physiology, pharmacology, technology, and I've had a fun second career in that field. I had a lot of unexpected turns too. I ended up becoming a chairman at UC Irvine, chairman of anesthesiology. Never intended to go that pathway. Was recruited in 1995 as the chairman at University of Arizona, which is where I retired from in 2016. And so I ended up in administration. Still doing some research and teaching, but a lot of administration. The moral of that story is always be listening and looking and watching. You never know where the road is going to take you. And then, like I said, it took me in directions that I would have never anticipated, but enjoying thoroughly. And it's been a good career.
Have you ever wondered how some people's stories live on, not just through their work, but through history itself? For nearly 130 years, Marquis Who's Who has been documenting the lives of leaders, innovators, and changemakers across every profession. From CEOs and scientists to artists and educators, Marquis has captured the stories behind success, the people who define our times. Being listed in Marquis Who's Who isn't just recognition, it's taking control of your personal brand and using it to create a meaningful and impactful legacy. It's a record of your life's work, preserved, published, and accessible to generations who will study, research, and be inspired by your contribution. If you've built something meaningful and you've made an impact in your field or community, this is how you ensure your story is told and your personal brand is maintained accurately with integrity. Visit marquiswho'swho.com to learn more about how you or someone you admire can be featured, because history remembers those who take the time to record it.
A very accomplished career. I'd love to ask you,
Thank you.
Stephen, who were some of the mentors that helped guide you through either medicine or aerospace and all of your accolades? Do you recall one or two of those persons?
Sure. When I was at Caltech, I worked for this genius in engineering. His name was Hans Leitmann, and my advisor in my thesis was Don Cole, and both of those people were very smart, and they, guided me to various sometimes crazy ideas I had for my research, but they recognized that I was different, and I appreciated that, because I had, whether they were good or not, I had original ideas and things that I thought should be pursued. I guess the other thing I should mention is that my college, undergrad, and graduate school were all sponsored by the U.S. Navy. I was not in uniform, but I was a civilian Navy employee all the way through to UCLA. And as a Navy employee, as you can guess, I was secretly involved in defense projects, and that's what funded my PhD thesis. It was anti-submarine warfare, which in those days was very fascinating.
Wow, that's incredible. You mentioned some of the crazy ideas that you had. Were any of those ideas to become an astronaut with all of your well-rounded background? Did you ever consider that?
You read my mind, of course. I wanted to be an astronaut. But my timing just wasn't right. And so it didn't happen. But I was distantly involved in the space program. I was more directly involved with the U.S. Navy, which, on my side, the stuff I was doing, it was basically anti-submarine warfare, figuring out how to detect and catch enemy submarines. And, that's what my thesis
fantastic.
really was. I don't want to bore you with too many details, but my thesis title was The Effect of Dilute Polymer Solutions on Radiated Noise from Turbulent Boundary Layers. And what that was really about was figuring out new technology for making torpedoes faster and quieter. And I contributed to that. So,
oh my goodness.
I had a top secret clearance at one time. And, that was another, sort of another life of mine. The advice I give people from that and from my change to anesthesiology and internship, always keep your eyes and your ears open. That it's never assume that you're not going to change your mind. Keep your options open. As you learn more about the pathway you are on, it might turn out that you need to modify that. And I did several times. It's not a bad thing. I never regretted it. I really enjoyed my time with the Navy, and of course it got me through college. I didn't have the money to go to Harvey Mudd or Caltech. The Navy helped me out. So eyes open, yeah.
When you are not thinking about the betterment of how torpedoes work underwater and the anesthesiology improvements, where do you spend and how do you spend your free time? Do you ever read science fiction or dabble in some fun movies or shows?
All the above. You could guess. I was a science fiction addict from the time I was about 5 years old. And when the robotics started developing as they are now, and it's really interesting and a little bit scary, I referred back to all these books I had read about how this was going to happen. One of my favorite movies is I, Robot. That's a very good book that was written back in the 50s, I think. Tons of science fiction. Other hobbies, I will say I'm pretty diverse. Going to Harvey Mudd, that's part of the Claremont colleges. There's 6 colleges there. Harvey Mudd is what I would proudly call a nerd school. The majors are physics, chemistry, engineering, and math. And so it's all those kind of people, which I was one. But the other colleges surrounding it include Pomona College, which is liberal arts. And so I secretly had a love of music, some classical music. I found in the dorm of my Harvey Mudd College where I was living, there was an old piano, and I didn't know anything about playing or reading music, but I noticed sitting on the piano was a copy of the written music for Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven. And I said to somebody, show me where middle C is on that page of music. And he pointed to it. And I said, show me where middle C is on the piano. And he hit it. And I said, thank you. And after a few months, no more information than that, I was playing the first movement of the Moonlight Sonata pretty darn well, I will say.
Wow.
In fact, when I went down to Pomona College to audition for my first music lesson, I said my background, and they thought, oh, this guy knows nothing about music. Go ahead and play something for us. And I played, and it was fun watching their reaction. And I had a very good experience down there. Found a wonderful piano teacher, took classes, and so music was my minor. My other minor was Shakespeare, and the reason for that is they taught Shakespeare at the liberal arts all-women's college called Scripps College, right next door to Harvey Mudd. And so you go down, you take Shakespeare classes, and you're in a classroom where you're the only boy. So that was,
strategic.
Another opportunity. Yeah, very.
I'm sure.
So music, literature. I still play the piano. I'm trying to get more back into it. I just got my piano too. I do some outdoor stuff. I was a pretty avid, busy scuba diver. I've given that up as time has gone. It's kind of hard on your body. At Caltech, I thought because, I'm learning about aeronautics and aviation, I got to know how to fly. And there was a flying club there. I learned how to fly.
Oh, my goodness.
I got my pilot's license and my instrument rating. And in fact, this is a sad part. I've owned an airplane almost ever since. My last airplane is for sale, and it's about to be sold. But at some point in time, you've got to leave the cockpit. I recognize that.
You
So a
sound
lot
like a
of fun
very
flying.
qualified astronaut, Stephen. I think you could
Well,
make it.
maybe. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you much. I certainly am not afraid to try anything. I won't say that I was good at everything, but I was a pretty safe pilot. I've got almost 3,000 hours of flight time, and no accidents, knock on wood. So those were my main hobbies, and I'm looking for new ones because obviously I had to give up a couple of them, like scuba and
Oh,
flying.
wow. That's so
But
impressive. I'm wondering,
it's fun.
of all your career adventures and choices and hobbies, is there anything you would go back and change, or something you wish you were with perhaps a little longer, or something you haven't yet done?
Well, that's a good question. I wish, if my destiny was to go into medicine, I wish I had done it maybe a little sooner, but I would have only made a difference of 3 or 4 years at the most. So not that big a deal. And the extra experience in engineering was good for me. It helped prepare me. 'Cause I still do quite a bit of research, and I'm actively involved in patient safety organizations. The dual background helps in that.
I would love to ask you something that's not in our questions for today.
Fire
Where do
away.
you think we go when we go under anesthesia?
That's a good question, too. I've heard stories from many people, everything from near-death experiences to they just don't remember anything now. I'm to the stage where I've been on the table looking up too. I've had a couple of surgeries, nothing life-threatening, but I've had general anesthesia probably 4 times. And basically I don't remember anything about it. But some people do have memories, and of course I'm very interested in that. I read about these near-death experiences too, where people, find themselves looking down on the table with them on it. And I don't know what that's all about or how it happens, but it's fascinating.
That is fascinating. You've been on both
Yeah,
ends of the
I have.
process. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I recommend that to other anesthesiologists
I'm
at some
sure.
point, and you're right. Get
Wow.
surgery, see what it feels like to be down on the table looking up at the anesthesiologist.
With all of the people that you've gotten to meet and work with throughout your career, is there someone
Mm.
you've always desired to meet and work with that you have still that desire?
I value and I'm thankful for all the great people I worked with. Most of them are after I went into medicine because that's a longer part of my career. One that I knew at Caltech, though, that I knew when I went to his lectures, and I wish I'd had a chance to work with, was Richard Feynman, Nobel laureate. And
Sure.
he was an amazing guy. Caltech at the time I was there was just every time you turn around, you're looking at a Nobel Prize winner. Feynman finally got his, and well deserved. But when he would give a lecture, he had an accent like a Brooklyn taxi driver. And you think, oh, I'm going to hear from a taxi. And the story that other people told was, yeah, in the first 20 minutes, all the students are able to follow him and the faculty. By the second 20 minutes, it's only the faculty that are keeping up with him. He's lost the students because he's going into such new concepts and stuff that nobody knew. And by the final 20 minutes, he's basically talking to himself, but everybody is just enjoying listening to it. He was a true genius and very humble about it. And I like that. It's amazing all the stuff that was discovered and done in Caltech. And I'm grateful for the time I spent there. I wanted the opportunity to stress my point to me, especially to the younger folks. As you go through your career or careers, always keep your eyes open and your brain open. Not that you should change in midstream, but you might find that there's a fascinating interest that you really want to pursue. And I can say from experience, it usually works. Yeah, sure, you're taking a slight gamble, but if you really want it, do it. It's going to work.
Well, thank you, Dr. Barker. That's wonderful. Is there anything you'd like to share for the next generation of anesthesiologists and adventurers and explorers? Some advice from your distinguished career that you could share with us today? Eyes open. That's great advice to everyone, honestly, not just, to me. And yeah.
Yeah, it's been the blessing of my life and the fact that I've had the opportunities to do these direction shifts. And sometimes you have to create those opportunities, but it's very doable.
Stephen, who has been able to help and support you in your family, either from the very beginning as your parents or your current family that has supported you throughout your career?
Okay. My parents were fascinating people, and I love them very much. But neither of them had any formal education after high school. And my father was a Navy guy. And, he lived in San Diego. That's where I was born. That's where my father and my mother met. My mother was from Charleston, South Carolina. And they were just great people. They were not, far advanced in the educational scale, but they learned what they needed to know to do the job. My mother basically was a housewife and took care of my brother and I, and did a wonderful job. It was a very traditional family. My father worked when I was a child. I remember he was working 2 jobs, working full-time at North Island Naval Air Station in Coronado Island. And then he had an evening job at a machine shop somewhere out in El Cajon just to make ends meet. So we, as kids, we saw a lot more of my mom than we did my dad, but I came to respect him and love him just as much. And he was very supportive of me. Financially, they were not well off. They were not able to help me much financially in college. But that was where the fortune smiled again, and I got linked up with the Navy, and they basically paid most of my way through college. And as I said, they also supported me during graduate school. So it was a sequence of great, and an older brother who has been very great. My wife, my current wife, Janice, is a wonderful supporter, and she's in the medical field too. She's a clinical nurse practitioner, also retired. But so we talk medical topics all the time, and she's the perfect match for me. We're trying to spend more time having fun and less working. And I not to say that one of my weaknesses, I guess, is I've gotten in the habit of working for so long, and as you saw, I had multiple jobs. It's hard to get out of that habit and getting more on the side of, okay, let's have fun now. And you've done all of that.
Yes. Well, you inspire us to work hard and keep our eyes and our mind open. to all kinds of opportunities. So thank you.
Good. And, I'll just say one last thing.
Please.
Academics was my main pathway because I loved to teach and I loved to do research. But the other parallel, simultaneous pathway that made it work was my links with industry. And I would get the idea for research from myself or from things I was doing, but to actually do some of the research, it had to have a purpose, and that purpose is going to be related to something industry is interested in, right? That link, that combination worked extremely well for me. So it's multi-pronged. Makes life complicated, but in a good way.
Dr. Barker, you have so many publications that you have produced and authored. Are there some particular that we would love to learn more and enjoy?
Well, that's an interesting question. I have over 150 total publications. Obviously, they're in both fields, engineering and then medicine. As an engineer, I published some research. Remember, I said I was working part-time for the Navy, and it was of interest in the Navy. And what makes me feel good is today, 50 years later, some of those publications in fluid dynamics are still getting referenced. I get these footnotes on an email about, one of my papers that was referenced from engineering. And then the more recent papers about medicine and mostly about monitoring, because that's what I do, that's what engineering does, as I said, and monitoring specifically in the operating room, which is very, very critical. Those are still referenced. In fact, I still get many requests for full copies of those papers. And so that, I'm gratified to hear and see that my work, published work, is still having an impact. And I still get invited to do lectures based on those works. So, publication is worth your time. There are frustrations along the way that, sometimes the publisher wants changes that you don't fully agree with, and you try to find compromise, but keep at it and you'll get there.
Good advice. Well, we're grateful to have you here with us today on the show.
Thank
This
you.
has been phenomenal getting to know you and your distinguished career. Congratulations. I know that you're up to more adventures, and I know that people are really going to be eager to find you and read more about you, and they can do that at themarquiswhoswho.com for more information. Thank you so much, Dr. Barker, for joining us today.